Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honors, and glories to Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahushua Ba'Hashem HaKadosh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to the hopeful elect. This is your brother, I am Noah Allah from Gemma, Chicago, and come back with you with another lesson. Right, I'm going to start with Revelation chapter 14, verse 13. It says, "And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, right, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth, yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from the labors, and their works do follow them." That's right. It says, "Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth." And yeah, real soon, all right, a lot of us as the hopeful elect, all right, some of us are going to be made as martyrs, all right, for keeping the word of the Lord's patience, enduring and, doing the Lord's will to the best of our ability, all right. But it's, it's also going to be a part of our test, all right. It's going to come down to, are you willing to die for this truth, ultimately? And we understand that, when Esau implements the R40 microchip, right, which is Revelations 13, the 13th chapter of the 16th verse, all right, Esau is going to be having them guillotines too, all right, to where, hey, if you want to live, or if you want to participate in society, take this chip or get your head cut off on the guillotine. And it all comes down to that. All right, it's either you keep the faith in the Lord, or you take Esau's offered a microchip, and real soon you're going to be destroyed either damn way. It says, "Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth, yeah, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them." That's right. There are many brethren, all right, that has passed away in this ministry. But guess what? Their works do follow them, all right? Because what? They strived for this truth unto death, all right? Many brothers that were in this ministry, all right, a lot of them has passed away, but, they strove for this truth unto death, all right, which is a good thing. Because guess what? According to the scriptures, all right, they're going to come back, reincarnated. First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse, I'm going to start with 15. Yeah. "For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep." "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with a voice of the archangel, and with the trump of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and the dead in Yahushua shall rise first." And that's right. When the Lord returns, all right, when the Lord cracks the cloud and every eye shall see him, all right, the Lord is going to come back in chariots, all right, to come deliver his elect, to save them from the nuclear destruction of America. Because, yeah, we understand through the scriptures, right, America is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear missiles, ICBMs. But before that happens, right, the salvation comes before that. Before the salvation comes, all right, the R40 microchip still has to be implemented. But nonetheless, it says, "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of Yahweh Hashem, Yahushua, and the dead in Yahushua shall rise first." So that's right. The dead in Yahushua, right, those who passed away in this ministry, which, the works do follow them, all right, they're going to be resurrected and having those new bodies, all right. They're going to be the ones that are going to be first resurrected with Yahweh Shai and the new bodies. Verse 17, then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds which are the chariots, which the world ignorantly calls UAPs or UFOs. Right? Who maketh the clouds as chariots, to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words. And that's right. Also the hopeful, we're still here in Babylon the Great. We're patiently waiting for the return of Yahweh. We're patiently waiting for the return of Yahweh Shai. Alright? But right now we gotta suffer. Alright, we gotta endure hardness as a good soldier, continuing to, strive for this truth even unto death. Alright? Because there's still work to be done. Matthew 16 and 25. Says, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. And that's right. Here we are, alright, doing the will of the Lord, alright, which is a good thing, alright. We understand that, in this walk, we're going to catch through all kinds of hell. We understand that, what we're doing, alright, is something serious, right? We're literally, risking our lives, to push forth His word so that we can get the blood off our hands, so that the Lord can deliver us. And here we are, losing our life just to save it, right? The scriptures also tell you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, right? That's what we're currently doing, right? We're going to go through all kinds of persecutions, catching all kinds of hell. People are going to turn up against us. But hey, we still have Yahweh Shai on our side. Says, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. That's what we're ultimately doing at the end of the day. Alright? We're losing our lives, but, we're losing our lives for Yahweh Shai's sake, so we're able to save it. Alright, so the Lord can be our refuge, so the Lord can be our covering in the time of, Jacob's trouble. Right? First Corinthians chapter 15. That'll be the last one. Verse 58. I'm going to start with... I'm start with 58. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast and unmovable, always abiding in the work of the Lord, for as much ye know that your labor is done in vain in the Lord. That's right. Our labor is not in vain in the Lord. Right? The Lord is going to give us 100-fold. All right, for keeping our eyes single on Him. Right? For forsaking everything in the world, all right, just to do this ministry, just to stay focused on what's really important, The Lord is going to pay His elect 100-fold when He returns. And all the sufferings that we're going through right now, there's nothing going to be compared to what we're about to receive, right? Because the sufferings that we're going through right now ain't shit, right? Scriptures call this a light affliction. Right? This is a light affliction that we're dealing with, that we're going through, you know. It's only temporary, right? But anyways, with that, hope this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praises, honors, and glories to Yahweh Bashem, Yahushua, and Shalom.